Good morning, everyone. I welcome all of you to the second session of the final day of the 24th National Conference of NHRDN. After going through the three M's, Meta, Mega, and Me, we now look at the fourth M to discover what's more about the metamorphosis of human resources. So, moving ahead with this theme, we now begin our panel discussion, Aram, the journey from campus to corporate. Today, in this early morning, we have with us Aparna Shalin. Aparna is currently the global head for campus recruitment at Wipro, an HR leader with more than 20 years of experience. She has driven several transformation projects during her career, and her expertise lies in creating high performing teams and functions. We are elated to be joined by Madhu Menon. She is a national leader, currently Director Talent Acquisition with Deloitte India. She heads talent acquisition across businesses of Deloitte India. We are honored with the presence of Mr. Abhijit Bhattacharya from banking industry. Abhijit Bhattacharya has 2 decades of experience in the HR domain and is currently the head HR for the technology and digital banking, small and medium enterprises, head talent acquisition and business HR, head for retail banking for ICICI Bank. The session is going to be moderated by Ritu. Ritu has over 17 years of rich experience in HR, mostly in aviation. She is currently heading HR at Akasha Air. Her last assignment was with Vistara as Assistant Vice President HR, where she was handling the HRBP and employment engagement work. Without any further delay, I would request Ritu Sinha to take over the session forward. Over to you, Ritu. Verticals. And now, without any further
Hi, good morning to all of you, and a very warm welcome to this session. In this session, we will be talking about the various aspects of making transition from campus to corporate. So we still, I'm sure all of us would still remember our days when we were like really worried about going to a corporate, whether people will accept us, how we'll make friends or not, how we should dress up, how we should behave. So all these things goes on in our mind. So it can be a very exciting journey, and with a little bit of preparation, it can become a little bit easy as well. All of us over here will be giving some of our tips on this session today. So, how I put it is that we should have three things in place, which I call the A, B, and C, which is the appearance, the behavior, and the communication. So, all these three things are very important. We are, as far as appearance goes, let me first talk about appearance. So, as far as transition from campus to corporate goes, so in our campus, we are used to dress in a certain manner, and that needs to change when we step into the corporate world. So whenever we are stepping into corporate world, we know which organization we are joining. If we know, then probably the first thing we should do is we should know the dress code of the organization and dress accordingly. So for all those youngsters who are joining any new corporate, and you can reach out to the HR and get the dress code policy firsthand from them, and then dress accordingly. Some corporates have a more formal dressing, some corporates have a little bit of informal dressing. Like, Monday to Friday, you can have semi formals. Fridays, you can wear jeans. So, these things are laid down in the dress code policy, and that would make life a lot more easier if we have that in hand with us. So always taking care of dressing up in office. We should invest in time knowing about the culture of the organization, how the culture of the organization is, how people dress and behave with each other. Looking neat and clean and professional, that is also very important. Being well groomed is very important. If you look sloppy and you are not dressed well, probably somewhere it creates an impression that will reflect in your work as well. The second point, which I think is very important, is behavior. So, in terms of professional behavior, what we call, uh, two, three things are very important in corporate world, which will be punctuality, and punctuality not in reaching time in office, but going to meetings in office. Wherever you have committed someone to be there, being on time over there, that is very important. Integrity and following the code of conduct of the organization is very important. You should invest in time in listening and observing and giving attention to every minor detail before jumping onto conclusions or giving suggestions to people. uh, Very important in your first few years, of course, is stay away from internal politics and gossip of the office. Um, Follow professional ethics and be a learner. Always be ready to learn. So in your first few years, um, don't think that this is not my job or this is somebody else's job. So you should always have that learner mentality, and that will always help you. So if you have got your hands dirty, done everything in the beginning of your career, then you move on. Wherever you move on, you would have done those things and you would know those things. So that will always help you in your career later on. And always, needless to say, that you have to pay keen attention to the organization culture and how people are behaving and interacting with each other. And if people are more formal atmosphere in the organization, please maintain that. And if they are making friends informal, please by all means do that. And be yourself, of course. So I always lay emphasis on being yourself. So you don't have to change yourself completely. You have to little bit adapt yourself to the organization's culture. The third part, which is the C, which is very, very, very important, is communication. So day in and day out, you will be needing to communicate with people. You will be needing to making presentations. So brush up your presentation skills, brush up your communication skills. Uh, of- uh, you will be required to write emails to each other in the corporate world. So brush up your email etiquette. Some These days, very, very important, I feel, is the social media etiquette. And almost all the organizations have their social media policy. So you should understand that as well, on what level you should be posting on social media, what you should not be posting on social media. So all these things are very important in a corporate world. So being courteous, respectful, all these kind of behaviors and etiquette take you a long way. And finally, my last two bits, which is very important, I feel, is consistency and credibility. So if you are consistent in your ABC, always follow these rules for yourself, it builds credibility for yourself. And credibility takes you a long way in the industry. So, it's a small world. We all of us know each other. Somewhere in the our corporate journey, we meet each other. And once you've been consistent, you have created that path for yourself. You will have credibility. People will talk good about you, and you will go a long way. So those were my tips on A, B, and C, and consistency and credibility as a personal brand. So now moving over to Madhu. Madhu, I would like to invite you to give your two bits on this topic.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ritu. Good morning, everyone. Very delighted and really privileged to be here, especially among our young leaders who are there in the audience. And as Ritu said, taking forward from the discussion she's made, of course, it takes back to all of us, to our memory lane, to what we experienced when we were in this journey. And if you see today, it is quite transformed, but the basics really remains the same, which Ritu has beautifully put in place. I also feel that those fundamentals are always with us, where we would require to prepare for the next milestone in our life, where from our studies to entering to corporate would mean a milestone, and we need require to prepare ourselves what it takes to be successful there. I'm looking forward for this discussion to learn from my fellow panel members also, as per what is their experience in the industry today. What are some trends which we are seeing apart from the organization and the industry vertical I'm in? And that's what I would like to look forward to with this interaction today. Ritu, over to you.
Yeah, sorry, Madhu, I was checking if there are any questions on the leaderboard. So, okay, Madhu. So, I would like to ask you, so what are some of the tips you would recommend these young leaders to be successful in their journey to corporate?
So, a few tips which Ritu mentioned, I would like to resonate with all those aspects which are very much important. But if I take my experience of what I have learned all this while to reach to this place, I feel that it's very important for us to overall understand that what takes for anyone, any professional to lead teams and to grow in their career. And to do that, what I see in my teams today, people who join us new as aspiring leaders or are young professionals, the foremost important thing is to have a passion of why, and that dream which is really going to translate into becoming a leader of tomorrow. So it's very important to have a passion in everything you do. It's very important to have your goals very much clear in your mind. The important part is that where you are and where you will be landing with that kind of a vision which you have envisaged for yourself. But in the center of it, it's always that passion, the dream, which basically take you towards that. So it's always, still today, I feel that at any given point of time, I follow my passion of leading teams, making my brand or my personal brand stronger. And therefore, we are able to lead because that passion never dies. So whether you are a young aspiring leader or whether you already reached to a level, if the passion is on all the time, uh, it pushes you hard to learn new things. You also unlearn what you have learned because we are in the era of digitalization, where we see that there are new things which are coming. We need to adapt ourselves quickly, and we've been doing that for last 2 years time, and therefore that is one thing which goes without saying. One thing which I have been observing in our young aspiring leaders is they are preparing a lot to get that one position or a role in a corporate. And it is important to look for that one role to entry to that corporate. But what is more important is to look or to prepare to how they are going to perform to that role. So if they do not start it early on, it would be difficult because the pace we are in, it is lesser time to actually experiment the kind of the output they are going to bring in a period of time. We are looking for people who are self-starter, who are on their go. So it's very important to prepare yourself to perform. Also, because we are transforming so much, there is so much of changes which we are seeing external in the market, in the industry, in overall norms. What is also important is to completely transform ourselves as per the situation which is important, and to transcend, which means that to be above all, so above and beyond rest, so cutting the edge. And therefore it is very much important for you to understand some of those things which are very important, like communication skills. And communication skills is not ending with only how you talk, how you write. It also is how you observe things, how you listen, and how you comprehend, and how you apply. It is the first and important aspect of anyone who would be gauged and evaluated on their overall presence. The second one is also about how you conduct yourself. Ritu touched it very well, would not like to repeat it, but it's very important. 75% of your presence is felt, where how you look, how you come across, how people perceive you, which is again very much important for anyone to make a impression on the people who really would like to either invest in you, to hire you, and then help you to grow. So I feel that if you really prepare for to perform and also transform to transcend, it will all help you to succeed in the journey of being the leader. The most important aspect, more than all of this, is around people. We do spend a lot of time these days on technical skills. We will learn technical skills, What we really do not miss is about those people element which continues to be with us from then, which was our era, till today. If you really invest in people, genuinely invest in people, you will really find yourself to be a better leader than rest. So it doesn't stop in investing in yourself, investing in people who follow you, investing in your peers who really give you tough competition to do the best of what you do, and also your leaders to inspire the the entire set of people around you. It's good to have good interpersonal skills, make relationships, understands the emotional element of the people around you, and make an impact basis your interaction with people around. It's a very important aspect. We can talk a lot about it. It's a very intense subject, but I feel that this is the foremost above rest. First is passion, and the other one is people skills, which doesn't go away, whichever level of position you are in right now. It leads you to the success. So thank you, Ritu. Over to you.
So you touched the topic of how your organization makes leaders grow, right? So I would want to know from you on how your organization makes these leaders grow within the organization, and what are some of the aspects of that.
Sure, Ritu. So, of course, like I said, all of this comes from the same mindset that executive presence is the first one for the young leaders to get developed. So we spend a lot of time. One is that we do look at culture fit when we do our assessment. So when we hire people, we do test them on various aspects of their overall aptitude, their presence, and all that. But when they come to us, it's very important we take that advantage of investing in them. So there are very structured programs which is driven from very experienced professionals who basically invest in overall development of these young leaders. So it starts with some etiquette trainings which we do for our young professionals, which is combination of etiquette and communication. It also puts them on to certain level of technical expertise which they also gain down the uh, in the second phase of their experience with us. The third one where we cover them is on their collaboration and overall cultural values of the firm. So it is experiential learning that we give them on the floor for initial 2 years before we really want to test them on giving them real time engagement to face the client directly. There is a very well structured thought process and case study based experiential learning modules created, where we also put a buddy along with these young leaders to help them to succeed. And there are coach and mentors within the businesses who help them to shape up, to groom them to the next level. And 3 years down the line, we really put them into an assessment center, which is the milestone for these young leaders to then take up the journey ahead to face the client directly, lead teams, and then grow in their careers as leaders with us. So we really invest a lot on everyone who joins us. And because of last 1 year of the disruption in digitalization, what we are trying to do is we are getting it early on in the second year of their education. We really are investing in going to colleges and making sure our faculty from our organization are taking them through the entire module of the businesses and understanding, to get them to train on the experiences which are important and then hire them and deploy them. So it's something which we've been doing for last 1 year. So that's our initiative around developing our people, Ritu.
Thank you, Madhu. We will come back to you with more questions while we move on now to Aparna. Aparna, I'm sure you'll have some very interesting campus hiring tips to give us.
Hi, Madhu. Hi, Ritu. Thank you. Um, from a campus perspective, I think the only over the last 2 years, it's been a very disruptive environment for everyone. And I think the only tip that I'd want to give is, as people have adjusted to the remote working, to studying through without actually going to campuses, I think they've really gone through a big shift. And we are seeing the impact of that. I mean, a lot of the students are, now completely engaging virtually, haven't had a chance to really feel the campus life, which I think is such a big miss, honestly. We've all, the 2 years that we spend on campus interacting with each other, a lot of the skills that Madhu spoke about, right? We actually gather that when we're interacting, when we're part of, the conversations, the presentations, working together as teams. And I think everything has moved virtual. And I feel that's been such a huge challenge for the groups over the last 2 years who've been, studying. And hats off to how people have really done that. As we've gone hiring on campus year on a year, I don't think from a Wipro standpoint, we've really stopped going to campus irrespective of what the time has been. And we've seen talent, which is stupendous. We've seen people really participate in a lot of the engagement efforts that are being done, whether it's case study competitions, really making the most of, what's available to them. And I think that's really a great skill, and will hold them great as they transition into a currently virtual world of working. As far as the technology industry is concerned, nothing is status quo in the technology industry. Things are constantly changing, and I think everyone who's studying in this scenario is most well equipped to really manage this huge disruption, this huge change that's going on. And I just want to say that just know that there's an expiry date to everything. So this crisis too shall end, and things will normalize, and we will all find a new normal. And I look forward to further interactions and questions from the group.
So, Aparna, what skills do freshers need to build to survive from their future skills perspective?
Um, Ritu, I've often thought of that. This has been a very a huge topic of conversation to say in the future jobs are going to change. None of the skills that we use today will be required. None of the roles that we're doing today will be required. 75-80% of the roles are going to change. But if you really ask me, I think it's very pointless to really um, be really looking at predicting what skills will be needed in the future, right? From my perspective, as I've seen over the 20 years, now it's been like over 2 decades, right, of career. And as I look at what's really held, and there's been a lot of change. It's not like change hasn't happened in the 2 decades. Of course, it's happening much faster now. I think everything's got transformed so much more quickly. But even if I look at the last 2 decades, I realize that there are a couple of core things which I call life skills, which are always needed. Right? Madhu also touched upon some of them, but one big one that I will talk about is learning agility. I think if we have the ability to learn and unlearn new things and then apply them to the rapidly changing environment, that's a huge skill that all of us need to kind of build. Right? Don't come in with the um, with mindset of I know it all. I know how to move through this. I've worked on it, or I've done a project, or I've studied like this. I think it's just about constantly learning and unlearning. The second are what I call the basic core skills, right? Whether it's communication, problem solving, critical thinking, right? I look at just working in teams, the ability to you know find information, analyze it, present it in a manner that makes sense. I think just working on some of these core skills will really hold people in good stead, irrespective of what job you're doing, which role you're doing, and at what time of our lives are we doing it. I've always seen that some of these things work. If I look at my career, I've never specialized in one space, right? For me, I would call myself a generalist. I have moved from starting out in sales and marketing to training to business HR. I've done HR operations. I've done workforce relations, and I'm now doing talent acquisition. I'm heading, globally Wipro's campus recruitment, but I'm not a talent acquisition expert. So I think the skills that I realized over a period of time that I'm bringing to the table are the ability to really look at a situation, resolve, critically analyze, transform, change, and those are some of the things that if you're able to build through your career, irrespective of which role you're in, I think they'll hold you in really good.
So, so Aparna, while it's very important right now that while we are talking about talent acquisition, we also talk about how freshers should be viewing their careers in the post-pandemic world.
So, careers. I think one view that we should really have is that careers are a marathon, right? You're running a marathon. It's not a 100-meter race. So don't be worried if you've not made a great head start, or don't be worried if you suddenly feel like, oh my God, at the campus someone's kind of gone or taken that big job or taken that big role or that big compensation. It's not about 1 or 2 years, right? It's a long journey. So we're in a VUCA world, lots changing constantly, lots transforming, and a lot of us are not even able to predict. I mean, I look at people who've had great career starts and then plateaued. I've seen people who've had slower career starts and then really, taken off. And for all of us, who've now worked over a certain period of time, have gone through that journey and seen it. So don't get too anxious about the start. Also, don't categorize in your head too much the industry vertical, the kind of role, the kind of title. Evaluate an opportunity for what it is. Evaluate the options that exist for you today. I mean, unlike, for us, so when I'm looking at 20 years back, I think there were clearly 2 or 3 industries that came to the campus, right? So the FMCGs, the consulting, the BFSI, I mean, that's primarily the space that we operated in. We didn't have so many technology companies or startups or new age organizations um, you know uh, or any of those newer organizations that are operating today. So we had a very limited um, career path to really start with, but I think you have the opportunity to really look at it more holistically. So do that, and that would be my only advice to
Thank you, Aparna. Now moving on to Abhijit, the one gentleman between us three ladies. So, Abhijit, over to you now.
Yeah. Thank you, Ritu. Nice to be here. Let me put a different. I can't agree more with all that I heard, but let me put a little different flavor to this discussion. Two things to start with. I think when we talk of Aram, possibly one lens of looking at it is for the young leader who's wanting to make a entry into the workforce. But the way I look at it, and that's my experience, it's also a start for the organization. And therefore, this Aram is a two-way symbiotic play of equals. That has to be kept in mind. Otherwise, it may be issued as an advisory to one set without really balancing it with the overall. That is going to make that journey beautiful. That is one. Second, I graduated in 20. So it's quite some time. My personal experience is youngsters, those who join the workforce now, actually they follow the Moore's law. Moore's law is very simple. If we go back, and I think in the inaugural session, I was listening to Mr. KV, he was mentioning about in some other context. I think the processing power of a chip has only increased over a period of time. And the same is replicated when I meet the youngsters. I think a bunch of energy, wanting to solve issues, and ability to solve something is faster. So that is the bundle of aspiration which is wanting to enter the workforce, should be known to the young leaders. That's the way I would see it, and that's the way it is. So then what happens in between? How do you make this Aram a beautiful Aram? I would say no advice, but the simple thing is what we have seen coming from experience. We debate this topic because at times what happens, the Aram gets broken by poor experiences. And that may come from both the stakeholders. So the good way of looking at it is possibly there is a world in which students possibly are just preparing themselves. And then there is a world where what has been prepared has to be applied. So I think it's a slow process of transition which can't be pushed through or accelerated. Now, in that context, let me put in perspective, what do organizations do? What do we do as an organization? I can talk about my organization. We are a bank and we serve all of you. Now, when we serve all of you, the customer does not understand whether the person has 0 years of experience or 10 years of experience. The service has to be delivered. And that makes the entire engagement very responsible. The good news is that responsibility and that baton can be taken up by anyone, which puts in perspective a sense of responsibility, a sense of delivering trust, a sense of learning. And at the same time, if you have to deliver on all of this, just give a little more time to get into the groove. I think that's all is required. And if that giving time to get into the groove is facilitated well by the organization, by many of the points, Madhu, what you mentioned, Aparna, what I heard you speaking, I think it's going to make the journey very beautiful. In terms of, if you really ask me, if I compare what is different today to what it was different earlier, I think there is no difference. Earlier, there was a flux of a kind. Today, there is a flux of another kind. Earlier, we would always want to tame the variables. Today, also, we would want to tame the variables. The nature of the variables could be different. And those nature of the variables should be understood, not just by youngsters, but also, I would say, by leaders. And the more we understand it and more we help, and I think many of these principles of RM may not just apply to young leaders. It could mean, because I was seeing the context of the, I would say, theme, it is for any person entering the workforce. So I think that is the other twist which I would like to bring to it. The last point there, in the inaugural point, what I would like to mention is, I think there should be a bit of RM in all of us. The point on learning humility, which I heard, I think it's good to remain as management trainee and campus joinees throughout the life. And that applies to all of us, including my young colleagues, those who are going to join the workforce. The reason is very simple, which is known to all of us. I'm not getting into the reason. Because if the variables are constantly moving, why wouldn't I like to enter the workforce through the route of RM, which we are all talking of, rather than taking a hard position, thinking that I did my RM 20 years back? So people, those who are getting into RM now, remember that journey is also, many of us are also in that journey. So I think this is a very, very composite theme, which in a way puts in perspective the concept of RM to an organization in eternity. And the reason is simple, because the customer has to be served. How we serve the customer, because customers mandate, and we are all customers in our own way, that has to be understood. And if that has to be understood, the full team has to be in a process and mode of developing RM. And I think few of the questions I'm seeing, Ritu, because that may get, I'm just addressing few of the questions which I'm seeing on the chat. I don't know, are you going to process it? Should we take it later, or how do you want to do it?
No, if you can see it, please, by all means, answer. I have other questions for you as well, but you can take these questions.
Okay, then you go ahead. I'll follow your order. We will pick it up sequentially. So those are my inaugural, I would say, points that are flashing in my mind.
All right, Abhijit. So, coming on first is what is your perspective on future of work? By key emerging trends with respect to changing skill requirement and changing assessment techniques.
I think most of the time, I think progressive organizations spend a whole lot of time identifying what is the future, because that is where the larger share of a P and value of an institution, the way you deliver, is done. I think all organizations represented by participants, all of us here would do that. Few things we understand, few things we don't understand well. I think one area which I would like to put in the context of how we want to do is essentially the concept of opportunity. And I'm putting a lens of banking, possibly, I would sense similar way other organizations may also look at it. I think opportunities today are not single line of opportunities. They are concentric circles. And most of the time, they are not so sharply visible. What I'm wanting to say is opportunities themselves are present as ecosystems. And when you say a concentric pool of opportunities available, say, for example, Zaveri Bazar, I'm just naming a locality in Mumbai, which is a business center in a way. Now, how do you define the opportunity there? Is a key question. Now, the point is, I'm not going to get into defining the opportunity, but the little point there is the flavor of that opportunity will require a different way of approaching. And that different way of approaching, more often than not, uh, is deeply embedded in solution, deeply embedded in relationships. Now, the moment you talk of solution, you can imagine a lot will depend how the organization has configured itself to look at both the, or I would say, opportunity and the solution. As an outcome, therefore, the lens through which organization structures were viewed previously, which is a hierarchy, we have seen a hierarchy most of the time does not respond to the nature of opportunities which are available today. And what we have therefore seen is we have to be comfortable, and this does not pertain only to my young leaders, to all of us as well. So I'm saying an institution overall has to be comfortable configuring itself in agile networks which is relevant for the given opportunity. That network can be representation of skills, representation of I would say relationships, which goes and gives a unified experience to the customer. So that is one area which I really think is the way you look at opportunity and the way you configure yourself to meet the opportunity. Now, the linking the two, I think there's a huge debate around how do you identify the right resources? Who are the people, those who would be comfortable working in these networks? Uh, that is a key question. We'll talk about it, but I'm just leaving that as a thought. And most importantly, how do you look at performance? How do you look at rewards? And how do you look at skills? So I think those are few areas where organizations to spot opportunities to configure oneself, and that configuration, why I give you an idea of the organization structure, but that organization structure may also mean doing everything digitally, which is around your entire go-to-market strategy could itself be very different in the current. So I think those are my initial thoughts around the way organizations are morphing. And added to it could be a lot of responsibilities around what skills. That's an ongoing process. What is the future? What kind of skill? And Aparna, I think you answered it beautifully. I think it is quite tactical in nature and with few long-term built of what are the skills which are future skill. But keep in mind, there's nothing called a future skill, because skill, if kept on a rack, has a shelf life. So it will die. So you can only train what is deployable. Otherwise, it's of no use. So those are the challenges and I think the opportunities, Ritu.
All right, and good insights on that. But since we are also looking for transition of some campus students to corporate, so I would also want to ask you on what exactly do organizations look for in young leaders?
Very nice. First and foremost, we have to be very clear why we are joining the institution. And that objective can't be any different to the objective of the institution. Say, for example, we are a bank, and I have to take banking where the customer is. So I think I have to be open about that process. First and foremost, most of the roles of an organization, one may look at as one is entering the workforce, one may look at what the organization does. And is that congruent to what I want to do? At times, it may seem different. And that is where the entire process of interview, which is a two-way play of equals, has to happen. Try to understand before it is rejected. Many of the time, say for example, most of the roles in banks are relationship roles. And it has to be understood in perspective. So I would say open about roles, open about locations, open about picking up opportunities where the customer is. I think we have to align most of the time, this applies to all of us, where the customer is, what is the ask, and configure ourselves around that opportunity. I think if that is done, organizations today have enough guardrails to, I would say, onboard an employee, to equip the new employee with the skills required for that organization. Wipro may have its own stack, we may have our own stack. So fundamentally, those processes are there in all organizations. But I think the openness about and doing that calibrated, I would say, experimentation to get into the groove where the customer opportunities is the key. And to that extent, I think every individual has a right to understand and should explore the organization well, should give that process a time. That should be my few words on that process, which I think works in a way.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Abhijit. Now let's take some questions which are there in the chat box. Abhijit, you said you saw some question.
Yeah, I saw a question very initially about loyalty. I'm just trying to scroll up. Loyalty and courage. Yeah, right. Confidence, curiosity. Let me just go up. It was, yeah, leaders should support, and this had come from Satyendra Sahu. He had posed a question 33 minutes back. Leaders should support their loyal resources, basically resources, those who are working on company's interest. A loyal resource get down only because of his or her leader's manipulation. These are all lessons in leadership as per me. I think what can make the journey, Satyendra, I can't agree more with you. The fundamental question is, I was doing a recent study, and that study was about why someone likes a workplace and why someone does not like it. So there was a drift in that study. That study said that ownership is key. And then it was a very primary research, and it went on to say how organizations can develop ownership. Many of the points, and the moment you put ownership, stakes come in. The moment stakes come in, you want that work to be successful, and the moment you want that, you put your best in. Now you name it loyalty, you name it ownership, whatever way you name it. I think organizations today, including ours, would constantly look at these avenues of how the bright people, those who join the organization, and for every organization, everybody, those who join are bright. How do you make the best out of it? So I think that's the entire game around a symbiotic way forward, is what I think, Ritu. That was one question. That answers the question of loyalty, the values. These are all symbiotic.
Thank you so much. We have last 2 minutes, and I have one question which any one of you would like to answer. Always when we are in campus, we are worried. Since all of you are doing talent acquisition and in campuses, so there is one student who is very studious, and there is one person who is very outgoing and people extracurriculars. Which one would you prefer while doing campus recruitment? Any one of you can take it. That's my question because I always wondered about it. Yeah.
So I'll take that up, Ritu. So it's not about being studious or somebody who goes out and do extracurricular activity. That's only one aspect of it. If you're really very thorough with your theoretical knowledge, but these days to really be successful is not only about how theoretically you know about your subject. It's about how you would transform that to a corporate when they join. So it's very much important for you to know the trends, to do your research, to be ready with the kind of trends which are available in the market, and hit the ground with what is reality today. So what we assess people and we will choose is somebody who really has done the research, and not to that extent that they know everything, but at least the awareness, the aptitude part of it, what is going around is very much important. So we would always like to look at talent who are bright enough, who are really investing in themselves and knowing what is going around. I think we'll pick up that, then only having the theoretical knowledge. And therefore, we have some case studies which we do in our evaluation, which really test them into how do they think, what is their analytical mindset, and how do they approach to a problem situation. So I think that makes it the differentiator rather than only the theoretical knowledge, Ritu.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Abhijit, Madhu, and Aparna. I can see Ravindra here, so I think uh, our time is up. So yes, Ravindra, over to you.
Thank, thank you so much, everyone, for your valuable insights. It was indeed an amazing session. I am sure that there are a lot of takeaways from the session. As I would like to put it, enjoy the journey and embrace the destination where you get there. Thank you once again. The audience may now move to the next session, which is a case study competition.
Thank you.
Thank you.